Okay, guys, so I just want to show you guys today how I would P2V a machine, and the kind of machine I'm going to P2V is particularly troublesome because it's going to be a Windows machine. And you'll always find this, guys, honestly, if you are trying to convert machines from being physical to virtual, Windows is always going to give you the most trouble because it's so finicky. And there's just so many things that Windows is like a black box, right? So it's just there are things that go wrong, and you're never sure what it's doing. So I've got a machine here. It's a physical machine. If I just grab it, it's just a laptop, and I've installed Windows 10 on it. Okay, so we've got Windows 10, and I'm not sure if you can see. Oops. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see the layout. But basically, you should see there's like three, that may not come up on the screen, but there's three partitions on there. Basically, the first partition is called system reserved, and it's 50 megabytes. And then we've got a C drive, and then we've got a recovery partition of 500 megs at the end. So three partitions, and the C drive is like slap bang in the middle. If you install Windows 10, this is the layout that you'll just get by default. It's like I just installed Windows 10 on here, I didn't choose any special options. And that was the default kind of setup. I'm guessing Windows Server is kind of similar if you install it to a physical machine. Either way, this is a good one to do because obviously it doesn't really matter if we're dealing with Windows 11 or Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016 or whatever it is, because Windows all kind of is built on the same sort of base, and so it all works exactly the same. So what I want to do is I want to shut this down, and then I want to pull the disk out, and I'll show you how I would clone it and sort of get it into an image file. If this was a server, I wouldn't take the disk out and plug it into my computer, obviously, because it might be sort of raided and all of that sort of stuff. You'd probably have to use something like CloneZilla. But either way, there's loads of guides how to do that. Loads of guides on this, and loads of different ways. So if I just put this here, so there's loads of guides you can just follow on how to get your initial disk image in RAW format. And sort of once you have that, then you kind of clear to manipulate the disk with all of the sort of commands that I'm going to show you. So I'll just show you one way, just a simple way. It's like a single disk. You're just going to plug it in with, and clone it. And I'll plug it in, obviously, with a thing like this. So just I can plug the disk in here. It's a USB on the side, and read the disk that way. But you can do all sorts of things, like you can clone it over the network using CloneZilla. You can, there's loads of options, basically. So you're not getting your initial disk image, you're not stuck to pulling it out of the machine. So I'm just going to pause this here, pull it out, and then just dump a disk image, so we've got something to begin with, and it will be this Windows 10 machine that I just set up or just installed. It's not activated even or anything, I literally installed it just so that I could have something to show you that I want to get from physical to virtual. And in addition to that, because Windows is obviously the intention of Microsoft is to change, everything must use secure boot and everything like that. This machine does not use secure boot currently, so you could also be in a situation where you're cloning from an old machine, and it might be like an old Windows Server version, and then you want to have it virtualized, but you also want to then enable TPM and enable secure boot, so that obviously I think all server versions currently don't require that to be upgraded, but in the future they will, just like in the same way Windows 11 requires TPM and it requires secure boot. So you might want to be in a position where you've got this machine virtualized, but still be able to upgrade it, right? And there's going to be a requirement to change bits and bobs of the machine so that it actually has secure boot and is compliant, basically. So let me do that. I'm just going to pause here and get this disk out, plug it into my computer, and then we'll do a disk dump together and show you how that works. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see that, but I've taken the disk out. It's obviously from the laptop, and I've plugged it in via the cable. So it's powered up now, and it actually gets picked up as this 127 gig volume here with, as you can see, this is Windows, right? So what I'm going to do is eject it, and I've got my notes obviously because I write stuff down so that I don't have to remember all this stuff. The first thing you do on a system is install some additional tools if you don't have them. And I'll obviously put all these commands in, but you just want to make sure you've got these guest tools because that allows you to manipulate the images and that kind of thing. So you may have to install this package if you don't have it. I'm then going to basically run this command, which is going to dump. I should probably show you that I know that it's SDC. So if I go to gparted and open that up. Okay. So it'll be SDC, which is the 128 gig volume. And they're the 3 partitions that we see, and it's in a fairly irritating order, basically. The order that I want to sort of get these kind of partitions in is all the partition, these little things in the front, and then finally a partition at the end, right? Kind of, because obviously then that makes it easy to extend the disk once it's virtual. If you kind of have this C drive in the middle, extending the disk is very irritating. But trust me, it's irritating to have a partition in the middle of the disk, and every time you ever want to extend it, you add more space, and then you can't extend the C drive because there are partitions sort of surrounding it. So we want to obviously escape this sort of setup that Microsoft has put us into. But whatever, you can see it's SDC, and I'm just going to eject this disk. I already ejected it, and I'm now going to create in this directory, which is extract here. I'm just going to basically create this this file, basically. So I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to start making this raw image file. And the raw image file is going to grow to the size of the disk. So it's going to so you're going to want to make sure you have enough disk space and all of that sort of stuff wherever you're working with these images to accommodate obviously the space requirements for creating these images. So if you had like a 4 terabyte disk that you're trying to clone in P2V, you're going to need like an 8 terabyte working area probably, or something like that, right? So this is going to take a little while, so I'll pause here, and you can see the command doesn't sort of show you any output, but at the end of it, it will have created a 128 gig raw image here, and it will say it's completed, basically. So I'm going to just basically pause here, so you don't have to wait for this, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so the disk dump here is kind of completed, and as you can see the resulting file is exactly 128 gigs, so that's kind of as expected. The next thing we're going to do is just convert it. So we're going to convert this to sort of a qcow image, and I'm just going to, I've got all these commands kind of on my notes here, but I'll just paste them for you guys in the description and on the guide and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to basically now manipulate this disk and convert it to a qcow, and this shouldn't take very long at all. It's a much quicker process. It only has to sort of do the space that's in use as well. So what you'll see is that this will probably get to like 30 gigs or something, which is probably about the size of Windows when it's just okay. So I actually warned you guys about checking enough disk space, and then on my computer I didn't bother to check, obviously, and I immediately ran out of disk space, so the video just cut out. So I'm just rerunning this command. I forgot what I was saying. Let me just refresh that. I might have to just, because I might have to interrupt this. Just give me a second. I just want to delete it and start it again, because I'm not sure if it was creating a new file. I don't actually know what it was doing, so let me just start that again. Okay, and then I think what I was saying was that this file won't be as large, and indeed it should be smaller, basically. It'll be the size of whatever the files were on the Windows computer, probably like 30 gigs or something. So we'll wait for this to complete. This does have a progress bar. You can see I ran out of disk space over here. I used all my disk up, and then basically had to go and delete some stuff, which was why the video cut out. But don't make the same mistake as me. We're just going to wait for this to do its thing. So it's still growing. What is it on? 20%, and it's got to 23 gigs. Okay. 23 gigs, is it still growing? Oh, okay. Okay, so that's interesting. So it's probably got to the free space on the disk now, because look, this percentage is continuing to increase, but the actual image is not increasing. So it's probably got to what is basically essentially free space. And it's just sitting there now, writing out the image. Okay, so we'll wait for that to finish. It's normally fairly quick. And I'll check my notes over here. Okay, I got them. So basically, yeah. So basically what we want to do is take this image and manipulate it and get it in a situation where it's ready to be virtualized as such. Because the default layout for the physical machine is not convenient, or it's not appropriate, or however you want to call it, for a virtual machine that over time the disk might sort of be extended and all of that sort of stuff. So did that complete? Yes, it did. And indeed, it's only a 25 gig image now. The other thing is, I personally don't like leaving it in this state where the image is smaller than the amount that the disk could possibly grow to. I prefer to sort of pre-allocate all the space. If I'm assigning a disk of 64 gigs to a machine, my personal preference is to make sure that the size of this is, say, 64 gigs or whatever. The reason for that is because if you're running a whole lot of virtual machines and you suddenly run out of disk space, you've got a huge issue on your hands. And obviously pre-allocating out the space to what they could potentially use is a way of avoiding that from happening, basically. But whatever your preference, the next part of this is we want to actually mount this disk image. And so there's a series of commands, basically what I'm doing right here, I'm just typing them in, which allows us to mount this disk image and take a look at what it's doing, basically. So I'm just going to paste these commands in, which is going to basically, oops, and that's going to tell me that I didn't name the disk correctly, because I want to mount the disk. It's called hdd.img.qcow2. Yeah, I'll just update my notes so that when I copy this and paste this for you, that you don't get an error here when you copy and paste them. hdd.raw.qcow2. And you can see I'm also, by the way, working in a specific directory all for these images. So it suggests doing the same sort of thing, creating a specific directory, doing all your work within one little area. It's just a little bit safer. And then I'm going to open up gparted, which is a good way of having a look at what's on the disk. And we should see, okay, so I've opened up this virtual disk image, this one here. And indeed, I can see my partition layout is exactly the same as what the partition layout was of the physical machine, right? And I now want to manipulate it because I'm not happy with what is actually going on here. So the first thing I'm going to do is shrink this down. And all of these things could take time. So obviously I'm working with a small disk and one that is not heavily fragmented. So probably these commands will take quicker to complete than they would in the real situation, because if these files are sort of spread out all over the disk and it's fragmented, the shrink operation takes and the move sort of operation, these things will take a lot longer. But in my case, it's oops, sorry. Getting tangled up here. So in my case, it's going to be fairly quick, but just and these things are obviously going to take you a long time. But it doesn't matter, because remember, we've put after cloning this disk, we've been able to put the physical machine back into service while we spend a long time manipulating these images and getting it ready to be virtualized. So it shouldn't affect you if this is a physical server that's having to be a web server or something and serve files to people. Once you've sort of taken a dump of the image, you can put it back into production. Not if it's like a domain controller or something. You don't want to get cloning domain controllers can be a little bit risky. if you don't know what you're doing. But you know, essentially, if it's some sort of standard machine, you can put it back in production. We can now do all our work and take as long as we want on this virtual side. So the first thing I want to do is shrink it, and I want to shrink it down to let's see. Let's say I was going to make this disk. I know that Windows 11 requires you to have a 64 gig disk minimum, so I can't go too small. Let's say that I was going to make it 60. I don't know. We'll say the whole gig in the whole disk in total will be 70 gigs, right? So we'll make this say 66 in size. Say something like that, right? So we're going to make the it's going to be something like this. We're going to have a certain size, a 70 gig disk, and we're going to fit all the other stuff inside of the 70 gig disk, right? So let's do that. Okay, so we've got 66 gigs here. Then we've got, and I'm going to move this all around. So let's apply. So what I have to do is I have to make space to move these partitions around. Okay, so that was fairly quick, the shrink operation, but I now need to move this across a little bit. This will take a little bit longer. So I'm going to move this, and I need to give it, how much space is this? 499 megabytes. Okay, and then also on top of the 499 megabytes, this is small. I don't like the size. I'm going to increase the size of this to be more appropriate. I'm going to make that 100 megabytes. I know when you create an EFI partition, it's going to need another 100 megabytes. And then I'm going to need to leave some space. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to leave about a gigabyte of space in front, so that I have, you might end up with a little bit of unallocated space at the end of this operation, but it'll actually be better than trying to not have, you know, rather waste a few little megabytes of space here and there. In the end result will be that we have a disk that we can extend as much as we want, and also these things can kind of be resized if we need to into that little bit of extra space. So let's say we had we were going to have a gigabyte of space. That would be 1024 megabytes, right? And that thing is currently 50 megabytes, so we're going to minus off 50. So we want 974 in front of this thing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go move, and we're going to say free space preceding it is going to be that, to give us exactly 1 gig. And we're going to basically move it and apply it. So let's let it do its thing. Okay, so this process looks like it's going to take a little while because it's got to move a lot of files here. 3 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just pause so you're not sitting here watching progress bar with me. And then I'll just unpause when it gets like right to the end, so you can see what happens when it completes. Okay, so I'll be back in a few moments, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so we're kind of at the end here. I kind of unpaused it 30 seconds before the end, just so that you can see how it completes if you haven't done this before. So maybe I was a little bit quick on the unpausing, but let's just see. Sorry, I'm not a professional YouTuber or anything, I just do this for fun. So let's see what it does here. It should basically just complete, and then I'll be able to move some stuff around in this space that I've made in the beginning, because I kind of basically want to make the sizes of the partitions kind of what I would consider to be logical, and also leave some space for the EFI partition to be created. So what's it doing here? Okay, good, it's all completed. So first thing I'm going to do is, how much space have I got? 974. So what I'm going to do is resize this a little bit to a nice sort of size, 128 megabytes, just so it's a little bit bigger. That should be super quick. So we've got 128 megs, and then I want to move this. And I don't think you can move it. No, you can't. Okay, so what you have to do is copy and paste it in here, and I'll make it 512, sort of, you know, in our sort of standard sizes, and I paste that, Okay, and so now we've got our two partitions. This is the copy of this one, which I'm going to delete. So let's delete that. So we've got our two partitions, and we've got a nice little bit of space available if we ever need to do any work with these partitions in here, that they can extend into or be manipulated. And also, I think about 100 megs of this will be used for an EFI partition when we convert this machine eventually over to secure boot from MBR and all of that sort of stuff. So this is good. So we're going to apply this, and we're going to go details, and it's going to say it's applied. Okay, so everything is now good. And now I want you to also notice, guys, so we've got our 1 gig, and then we've got our 66 gig over here, and that makes 67 gig. And that's going to fit inside a disk that I'm going to create right now. That's going to be 70 gigs, right? So we obviously need to just make sure that if we add up all of the stuff up to the end here, that I'm going to create a disk big enough to accommodate all of this stuff. And I'm going to do that right now. So I'm kind of done resizing and setting up the disk how I want it. And I've decided ahead of time I'm going to make a 70 gig disk, and this is all going to fit inside of 70 gigs because 67 definitely fits inside 70. And I'm going to move on. So now I need to detach this, right? So let me go back to my notes, which is over here, and let's just detach the this image. So I'm going to paste and detach it. And now what I want to do is I want to create a disk. Okay, so let me create a disk, and on this particular command, let me just say XX on there, because you know you guys are good at just copying and pasting. So here we've got to put it should be G at the end. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new disk. It's going to be blank, and it's going to be called ClonedDiskresize, and I choose the size of the disk that I want. So I'm just going to say create this blank disk for me, and I hit enter, and it's going to just make a new disk, and the size of the disk will be 70 gigs. And so you can see that this one was slightly smaller than this one. The size here doesn't for some reason tie up. I don't know why. Just it just doesn't. Maybe there's some overhead or something. But basically, what I can do now is I can copy all of the contents out of this into this new disk that's exactly 70 gigs. So the way to do that is, for some reason, to use this virt-resize tool. And I'm going to go from cloned disk. Okay, so this has also got the wrong name here. So this is going to be called hdd raw. Okay, so we're going to go from the excuse me, sorry, just had to sneeze there for a second. So I'm going to go from my disk here, hdd raw, to ClonedDiskresize, and it's just going to copy all of the contents out. So a bit tired, I need more coffee. And it's basically saying, look, it actually noticed that there's a surplus of 3.4 gigs, basically. Okay, excellent. Let me just pause a second. I just want to go and just blow my nose quick. So just give me a moment, and this can complete while I do that. Okay, so this thing did complete. I just basically waited for it to complete, so it just means it's copied everything from there into there. And then yeah, obviously you want to just reattach it, because it did say that it was going to create another partition, which I just want to get rid of. And so let me just do that quick. And it's the same kind of commands as before. You're just opening gparted. So what has it done? Okay, so this silly program has gone and made this thing at the end. I don't know why. I don't need it. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And now we're back to how we wanted it, basically. A 70 gig disk, perfectly 70 gigs. And it's gone and deleted. This thing is so stupid. So it's gone and removed the space that I added here, which I need, because I don't want Windows to come along and create an EFI partition at the end of the disk here. So what I need to do is I need to move it along again. So how many okay, so what I need to do is just work out. I've got 1024 minus, what is it, 128 minus 512. So I need 384 available. So 384, I didn't know gparted was going to take that away. Okay, so we're going to go like that now. And we're going to have some space here. So we're going to apply that. And I'll extend the volume when I'm in Windows just to the end here. Okay, so I have to wait again for this to complete. So I didn't know ahead of time that was what was going to happen. I wonder how you could have avoided that. You could have created a partition. I'm not too sure. I guess you could have created a partition instead of leaving it blank like I did. You could have made a partition in there and let it fill the size and then come back in afterwards and then deleted that so that it didn't get rid of it, basically. So that's interesting. Yeah, either way, you see the end result here. The goal of this is to end up with a situation where we've got a little bit of space here, and we're going to get rid of the space in Windows, and we'll show you that in a little while. So let me just get this finished, and then we'll carry on. Okay, so this thing is just finishing off. So I was just going to say, as you can obviously see, some of the stuff is kind of theoretical for me as well. I'm just kind of guessing as we go along, because I wasn't aware of some of these sort of ins and outs, so we're kind of learning together, which is cool. But I am hoping, and I don't know what will happen, that when we create the EFI in Windows, the EFI partition, if I leave some space here, I'm hoping it won't shrink down the end part. I'm not really sure what it will do, to be honest. So, yeah, I'm not 100% sure what will happen. So I'm just going to wait and find out. Thinking about it as I'm not actually sure, but we're going to find out together. Basically, I want to basically give Windows the opportunity to create the EFI partition in the front, and I'm hoping by presenting it some space, it will just do that, and then leaving this. Because normally what happens is if you don't leave any space here, I know that what will happen is when you sort of convert it to secure boot, Windows will shrink the C drive and then just add it at the end, and that's not desirable. So we want to try and avoid that situation if possible. So we're going to find out now. Okay, so this is looking good, so refresh. Okay, let's see what we can do. Okay, so we've got our disk here. I'm just going to call it Win11 test. And this now, okay, so we can either, let's just do it in Virtual Machine Manager. It doesn't, I mean, if you had Proxmox or something. No, actually, you know what, I'll do it. I've got an Unraid server, so what I'll do is I'll copy it up. It's the same thing, like, right, if you're used to using Virtual Machine Manager, you can use it in here. But it's just editing XML and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm going to do it in, just to be a little bit different, I'm going to just put this in Unraid, but it really actually makes no difference. And the reason why I'm choosing to do an Unraid is to kind of force you to know, or force you to understand that it's agnostic at this point. It doesn't actually make any difference where you put this image. Like you could put it in a Proxmox cluster, you can put it in anywhere, right? Once you've got the image file, it's just a disk file that you're going to create a virtual machine and attach the disk to. So I don't want you to get hung up as to exactly you know, the sort of what we're choosing here. I want you to understand that it can go anywhere, right? So let me just paste this up. I just have to paste it just to this thing called ISOs on my Unraid server because yeah, it's going to take a little while to get this. So I'll probably have to pause. I have write access to here, and then what I'll do is I'll create a VM, and then I'll move this file from here into the relevant location so that the VM can find it. So let me pause here, and I'll come back to you. Okay, yeah, so that's going to take like quite a long time to actually copy. It's going to take like 20 minutes. So I'm definitely going to have to leave you on pause for a little while it's going up there. But I did log into my Unraid server, basically. And it basically has some VMs that I already have running. But I'm going to add another VM, and the VM that I'm going to add is going to obviously then have this disk attached over here, basically. So let me just make a VM, and then I'll show you afterwards how to attach that disk. So basically, this is just kind of any interface that you're used to with that's like sort of KVM based. You'll add a VM like this. You'll choose the kind of VM you want. So a little bit different when you're using Virtual Manager. Like basically, you get the new virtual machine prompt, and then it's asks you similar kind of questions, right? Like, what is the machine type? Windows 11. Or whatever, yeah. And then, you know, you're going to go through how much RAM, how much CPU. It's the kind of same kind of thing, but just this is just doing it through a web interface. And so here's the same kind of questions that you're going to be used to. So I'm just going to tick what I want. Okay, Windows 11. I'm going to call it Win 11 test. And okay, so here at this point, I'll give it 8 gigs of RAM. But here's where it's basically choosing the machine type. Now, at the moment, I can't choose a machine type that's secure boot, right? So I need to leave the machine as CBIOS for now. And then we're going to go through a conversion process to accommodate. I actually don't know. Could I use it? Could I leave it like that? I actually don't know the answer. I mean, it might not boot, basically. If I did this, it probably wouldn't boot. Because I know that the machine kind of is like it's got a regular BIOS at the moment. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to leave it like that and then come back and change it. Virtual drivers, yeah, okay, sure, we can leave it like that. Guest operating system. Okay, I don't need an install ISO right now. I'm going to let it make a disk of 64 gigs. Actually, I only need to have a small gig. Why do I do this, guys? I'll show you why I'm going to actually create a disk, to be honest. And I'll choose qcow. So I'm going to create a disk because basically when I first load up the VM, or attach that disk that I've just cloned and load up this VM, it won't have any of the virt-io drivers installed. So if I was to try and set the disk type to virt-io, it wouldn't boot. I have to select something like SATA, right? But the problem that I actually have that I will have to overcome is that even when I've loaded the drivers into Windows, it still won't boot if I was to change the disk type to virt-io. And there's a reason for that, is that because Windows doesn't load the drivers, or doesn't know to load the drivers for the boot disk. And so there's a way around that. What you can do is you can attach a second disk, like what I'm doing now, and then install the drivers for Windows, and then it knows to load them on boot, right? Because it's in Device Manager. And then that will then allow me to change the disk. But I will go over this and explain that in a little bit more detail as we go on, basically. It can only be 8 characters. So I'm just, okay, then the other thing you want to do also, guys, is if you ever come across this, and this is, I don't know if this is just Unraid specific or if all of these sort of things do this now when you make a new VM. But basically the network type, when you try to make a VM, it always seems to want to select virt-io net. You don't want to use that one. That one's slower than the virt-io one, believe it or not. It sounds like it's newer because it's got a dash and then extra stuff off the end. No, it's actually slower. It's actually worse. You want to use this one unless there's a specific reason for using this. I think there is a difference, and I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But in certain circumstances, this one will work, whereas this one won't. For certain functions, I think it's something to do with Dockers or something like that. I can't really remember. But this one is quicker, basically, and so we want to use this one if we can. We don't want to start after creation. So I'm going to create this like this. And once it's created, then I'm going to wait for the disk to come up. Okay, so we've got our thing here ready to go. And I'm going to just basically wait for my disk to finish copying. It's going to take, okay, another 17 minutes. I've got quite a long time. So what I'll do is I'll pause for a while, and we'll, sorry, I meant to say, and we'll come back to it. And then I kind of click pause and cut you off. But I'm just basically waiting for this to finish, and then we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so I basically waited for this thing to finish copying, and then I moved it around to where it needs to be. So basically, if I edit this VM now, I should be able to attach that disk. So primary disk location, I'll just go manual. And I will change that to the disk that I want, which is this one. And then this disk is going to be SATA, and then I'm going to add another disk and go that other disk that we made from earlier. So that's this one, which is that small disk, and I'm going to leave that virt-io for now. Then, yeah, the rest of the stuff is totally fine. So we'll just go OK on that. And then this will probably just start up on port 5900, I guess. Yeah. So let me just get that quickly. So basically, I'm just going to bring that over and just connect to it. And okay, so I missed what happened here. So it basically says no bootable device. Okay, so let's just take a look. I'm not actually sure what it's booting from, so let me just force stop that and just take a look. I didn't really get a good look at it, so let me just go edit disks. So what have I got added? I've got that, and then I've got that. Okay, so let me have a look at the XML. So this one says boot order is 1. This is the disk I just copied up, and boot order. Okay, for some reason this doesn't have a boot order. Don't really understand why. Okay, so let's just put that in. Okay, so let's just see what happens. I'm not really sure where we are with this thing, so I just might need to just fiddle around a little bit. Failed to boot from disk. Not a bootable disk. Okay, so something's clearly gone wrong here. Maybe, let me just check this disk that I copied up. So I think I can go, let's just check that nothing's gone wrong with it. And this one is Windows 11. Oh no, did I leave something open? Why does it say that? So it could not open, failed to get write block. What? That's not good. What about this hdd rule? I'm not really 100% sure what happened here. Okay, that one it can open, but somehow something's got stuck on there. Ooh, I know what I did, guys. Okay, I did something bad here, guys. Oh my god. Okay, I forgot to detach the disk before. Okay, that's not good. Okay, so the disk I've copied up is completely broken. So basically, I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. I'm supposed to detach the disk when I'm finished editing it, so that was this command here. I didn't detach it, so okay, I've done something really bad. So basically the disk I copied up is completely broken because I didn't detach the disk. You see, now I can look at and inspect the disk. Okay, so all of that time copying up, I've just basically broken it, So I need to recopy the disk. Okay, so I'm going to have to pause you guys again, recopy the disk up. So that's my bad, not paying any attention to what I was doing. So let me repaste up this disk. Wait another whole long time for it to copy up, and then hopefully this time it'll boot. So I'll come back to you once I've copied the disk and moved it back into location here. Okay, so give me another second. So yeah, don't make the same mistake I made. Make sure that you should actually run this command. Just check that you can inspect the disk at the end and that nothing sort of right-locked it, because otherwise you'll end up in my situation where you copy up the image and immediately the image is completely broken, basically. So I'm going to wait for this to finish copying up and come back to you. Okay, so this is just taking a little while just to copy up, so I'm just going to wait for it to finish. I know I said I'd unpause you when it had kind of completed. But actually I have to go and do something else anyway, so what I'm going to do is just, there'll be like a big cut here because I'm going to actually stop the video here and then carry on recording this later, and then I'll join the two sort of files that I have together. So I will be back much later when this is sort of copied, and hopefully I'll just remember where we sort of got up to. But it'll be basically getting this up to my server, and then hopefully it'll boot basically when I attach it. What I'll do is I'll probably just attach it. Is that still on? I'll probably just attach it and just check that the machine boots up basically after recopying this file. So yeah, I'll be back in a little while basically. Let's force stop that. Okay, so give me a bit of time and I'll come back much later. Okay, laters. Okay guys, so it's actually the next day, and actually I did a little bit of testing and just to clean up and make sure I knew what was happening. And actually I found my issues. There were actually two problems that I needed to resolve. And I also actually just checked a couple of other things just because I wanted to just check what would happen in different scenarios. So firstly, the issue that I had was I have copied up the image now to my unread server. So if we take a look, this is the exact same file here, this one that we created yesterday that says Win11 test. I've basically just recopied it up. But basically what I found was the first issue was that I didn't disconnect this disk properly before copying it. So in here, so basically if I show you the commands again, what I did basically was this. I went and let me just find the commands. I want to copy and paste them. So this one's called Windows 11 now, so I just need to reconnect it. So I did the this command here, which just sets the maximum number of partitions, and then I connected the disk with this, basically. With this command to sort of a virtual device, and it was Win11. And then I opened it in gparted like we saw before, and I could see the partitions on this disk, and I moved them around if you remember exactly how I wanted them. Now, one thing I would also mention at this point is that this maneuver of the partitions, and I did go and check this on another computer that I had lying around, which was also just a laptop, but it had Windows 11 installed on it, and that was installed in Secure Boot with EUFI, sorry. And basically, what I found is that you don't need to do any partition change or any maneuver, because it actually, when you install in the more modern mode, Windows 11, at least when I checked on my laptop, had put sort of the reserve partition and then the EFI partition first, and then the C drive afterwards, so it would be completely clear at the end of the C drive, so you would always be able to extend it. So this maneuver of the partitions is only obviously for, like, say, older machines like Windows 10 in non-secure boot mode, basically in legacy boot. And so that actually I thought that was a good thing, because it means that you wouldn't actually have to do a whole lot of these steps if you were moving a more modern OS. But I also thought actually this is good that we had picked this older OS that wasn't installed in that way, because it shows you all the different steps that you could take and how to fix it. There are also different commands, because once you manipulate the sort of partitions like this system won't boot. It will generate an error because things have been moved around that it isn't aware of. And there are different sort of commands to fix the boot depending on if it's legacy or EFI. So obviously I'm going to be going through how to fix it for this legacy option. And you shouldn't have to do anything for EFI because you won't have to manipulate the partitions. But just obviously bear in mind the commands that I run to fix this are not going to be the same if you did modify the partitions on a more modern system that was already in secure boot mode. You have to do something different, basically. So you might want to just bear that in mind. Don't just copy and paste sort of the same, or just copy the exact same steps that I do in a system that's been installed in a different way. That's just basically what I'm trying to get across. So basically, I closed this, and then what I tried to do is at this point I just tried to copy the file up, and I didn't disconnect it. So this was the first error that I made. I didn't disconnect the actual device like that. And obviously I could verify that by saying I couldn't query it. So I think I couldn't do this, basically. I couldn't type qemu. I couldn't type this, basically. I think it was info. And then, yeah, so I couldn't type this. So basically I couldn't gain information. It said it was already connected, so it couldn't lock the disk. And obviously that's bad if I'm trying to copy it. I don't want the disk to be locked by potentially being used by something else. This may, if I hadn't done any writes or anything, it may have still copied up correctly. But there was a second issue which I found, was that because I was kind of trying to rush this a little bit and copy this and then show you how to create the virtual machine at the same time, I found that while I was copying this and I copied it up, if I then created the machine and attached the machine to that disk while it was copying up, it prevented any more writes going to the actual file that I was copying up. So basically, I started copying the disk, then I started creating this machine, and it kind of locked the file. And so the actual copy didn't work correctly because I had attempted to attach the disk while this was copying. And how did I work that out? It was actually really easy because down here, I could open this image still in gparted, and I could see that each of the partitions were on there. And then actually when I had copied this up and this was already here, I attached a live version of gparted. There's like a, that live CD that you can download, which is over here, this one here, gparted live. I attached and booted off gparted live on the VM that I'd created, and suddenly it was the same file, but it couldn't actually read the disk at all. It thought that the disk was blank or corrupted, and so I couldn't see any other partitions. So I knew that something had gone wrong with the copy up, and it took me only a short while to work out if I've gone and created this VM and then tried to attach this disk, it actually interrupts this copy and causes all sorts of issues. So I definitely don't want to do that, basically. So what I've gone and done today is I've obviously just taken this file. Again, it's 75.2, and this is the exact same file. I've copied it up, but this time I haven't tried to create a VM or anything. I've just let it copy up, and I've just been patient. And I've just basically left it while it was doing its thing. And now I should be able to go and create a VM, and I should get the error that I was expecting. And actually, full disclosure, I have tested this to make sure that I do get the error that I was expecting, and I do. So if I go add VM now, after it's finished copying, you'll see that we'll get some different error, basically. So I'm just going to recreate it, Win11 test. And I'm just going to set all the CPUs I want. I actually just want these 4. So we'll just recreate it. So basically it's still, obviously, because I've just copied up the image, I haven't converted it to secure boot mode yet. So I still need to leave this on the older style CBIOS and the i440FX so that it's like in legacy boot still. Then what I'm going to do is I will need to add an OS install ISO to repair the boot, but what I want to do is just show you what happens when it boots at this stage. Then, if you remember, when I did create the disk initially, it created this disk image, which by default we do need a second disk, and I'll go again over that, why we need that second disk at some point. But I'm going to just set the primary disk to be obviously the copied disk that I've copied up, and you'll see the error that I was kind of expecting, and what we do to fix it, basically. And this error, if you hadn't manipulated any of the partitions, obviously it would just boot at this point. The only reason it's not going to boot is because we had fiddled around with the partitions, and I do recommend you do fiddle around with the partitions, because you don't want to be in a situation where the C drive is not on the end, otherwise it's very difficult to extend it, basically. So I'm just going to add both disks. The first is the Windows disk that I copied. The second is just this blank disk. It really is just blank, and we don't even need to copy data to it. We just need a second disk. And if I go to domains, and over here, it's going to add it and leave it on virt.io, because I do want it to load the drivers eventually. Okay, and I just need to make sure I put an 8-character password for some reason. Remember I said don't use virt.io net, use virt.io. And then we're going to create the VM, and we're going to check what the error is, and it's not going to boot, but I'll show you how to fix it at this point. And again, the steps that we use to fix it would be different if it was in secure boot already, if it was or versus a legacy boot. But as I also mentioned, is you don't really need to move the partitions around when it comes to secure boot, at least in Windows, because they're already in the correct location, basically. So this will only probably actually affect you in a legacy boot situation, so you're P2Ving an older machine. So I'm going to start this and then open up the VNC. Okay, and here we go. Basically, this is the error that you would get. It's basically saying it can't boot the machine, and if you hit enter to try again, it doesn't know what to do. If you hit F8, it also has absolutely no idea what to do. It can't pick up the recovery partition, and it can't pick up, that was moved, and it can't pick up the Windows partition because that was also kind of moved. They actually were swapped around in order, basically. So what do you do, basically? It's not actually that difficult. So we're just going to stop the Windows 7 machine, and I'm going to show you what we do. We basically just attach another Windows disk to it. It can be Windows 10, Windows 11, or Windows Server. It really doesn't matter. I have Windows 10 here, so if you do have the same version, it's probably good to use the same operating system if you can. But I do think that you would be able to use any of the sort of Windows CDs, because they all kind of build off the same image these days. So, or same base, basically, right? Like Server 2019 and Windows 10 are pretty much the same, right? Just they have different features that have been built in, and the final OS is kind of different, but the actual underlying structure is similar. So what I'm going to do is just attach that and update it. So I've attached the Windows CD, and then just in Unraid, I don't know if you remember, I need to just change the boot order. So I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to alter the boot order in the XML here. So it's basically saying, look, Windows 11 test is order 1. I don't want that. I want it to be 2. And then it's saying, look, the CD, which is this ISO file here, that's order 2. Well, I want that to be 1, right? So I'm just swapping the order around. So I'm just going to save that and then boot it up again. And I'm going to go start here. And I'm going to connect again, and hopefully it's going to say boot from CD. And if you're quick enough, you'll just catch it just in time so that you can hit enter and it'll boot off the CD. So you might want to be super quick on that, or yeah, basically you need to just be super quick. Basically, if you're loading up your VM, just have it open or VNC to it as soon as you can, and then you'll be able to capture the part where it boots off the CD, right? Okay, so it might take a short while to boot off the CD. I might pause here. For some reason, it does take a minute or two to boot off the CD. I don't know what it does, but eventually it does boot up and re-get into the recovery. Maybe I'll leave it the first time, and I'll pause it subsequent times, just so that you can see sort of the amount of delay you should be getting. It's fairly substantial, so just be patient. like a lot of these things that we do, a lot of the commands that we run do require some patience, unfortunately, and you just have to wait and see if it's going to work, and go make another coffee or something, because that's whenever there's something where we have to be patient, it's best to go and make a cup of coffee or something, and then wait for it, and see if it boots, or a cup of tea if you're that inclined. So we'll just see what happens. So let's be patient. And in a minute or two, we'll see what goes down. So it is a substantial waiting period for some reason. In certain cases, when you see this flashing cursor, it's not necessarily meaning it isn't booting. I'm almost 100% certain this will boot. It just takes a while, and I say that because I've seen this before. So let's see. If it's starting to take a really long time, I might pause it, and because I honestly don't remember how long it takes. I know it's like a couple of minutes or a few minutes. Seems longer when we're all waiting together, but there we go. Okay, so eventually it just boots. As you see, you just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and then the CD boots. What it does, I have no idea. But we'll now be able to go in and fix the bootloader. And if you remember, for legacy systems, not in secure boot mode, that command that you run is that, I've got it written down here actually, it's that bootrec/rebuildbcd command, and it just scans all the operating systems and adds them to the Windows bootloader. So you just basically click here where it says repair your computer, and we're going to go troubleshoot. If we click continue, it would just take us to that screen before where we saw that it wasn't booting. So we want to hit you can try the startup repair. I don't know what the story is with startup repairs. Like, it seems like super low success rate. Every time I ever use it, it like never fixes stuff. Even though the command you then type in the command prompt fixes it like every time. So I don't know what exactly this does. Maybe it just errors out really easily. But like it's probably about 10% of the time this will work, and so invariably most of the time you're going to be just dropping to the command prompt. And the best thing to do is when you're in here is to just check that all of the disks are available, and make sure that you can browse the Windows files, right? I know this isn't specifically sort of a Linux thing, but like a lot of in enterprise environments, a lot of our work will be on Windows computers, right? So or a mixture, right? So we might have some Linux computers, some Windows computers. So it's good to know kind of everything. So if we list the disks, okay, so we've got one disk at 70 gigs, right? So perfect. Okay, so let's go select disk 0, and then list the partitions. And we see we've got the 3 partitions. Okay, so that to me indicates that some volumes should have been loaded. So I might just list vol. Okay, and we actually see, for example, so we've got the 66 gig one here, and that was assigned volume 4, which is the E drive, right? In this sort of CD has loaded it up that way. So what we want to do is exit disk partition and go to E:, and just check we can browse the files, which we can. So that's great. And now we just want to do basically if we actually do a bcdedit, we'll see that, that basically it's trying to, there's that win node, for example, and it's saying that device is unknown. So yeah, this is not going to work basically. So we want to just get it to rebuild it. So it's basically just boot rec. Remember, don't run this on EFI systems, guys. So reboot rec rebuild. I'm just copying what I wrote down here. BCD. and it scans for Windows installations and then just basically rebuilds that, basically. Okay, and then it tells you, look, hey, I've identified this Windows installation here on e:\Windows. What do you want to do? Add this one? Yeah, of course I want to add it. So if I do that now, it looks different, right? It basically says, okay, I got this this partition here, and I've added it to the bootloader. And we're going to change this again anyway, because you'll see that actually the recovery partition is gone now. But we still want to have the recovery partition back in there in case we ever need to use it. So we'll add that in later. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the computer and remove that CD, because it's we're done with that now. So let's do that. Let's take out that CD here. So I'm just going to edit this XML. It's this disk here. So I'm just going to say boot this one back in order 1. And I'm going to take out this disk here, basically. Okay, so we're going to update that. And if we start this up now, we should, oops, I've got to go here, don't I? Super quick. Okay, you didn't see anything, but I think basically all that happened was you got the sort of BIOS loading, and then it goes straight to the Windows logo, and you can see it's booting now, right? Windows is now clear on what it's supposed to do. It realizes, oh, okay, I got to boot here, basically. Okay, awesome. So there you go. So this is definitely fixable. So just basically, if you move your partitions around, don't panic if the thing doesn't boot afterwards. Like I like to point out, all of these things are always fixable, right? So if you break something, you just have to figure out how to fix it. Basically, I'm actually not sure if that's a helpful thing to say, but basically, don't be panicked when you break things. As long as you sort of think about what you've done and sort of go through it methodically, you can always fix it. And that's true for any operating system, although even more true for Linux, where everything's sort of a file. In Windows, it can be a little bit tricky because things are like stored in the registry and sort of in files that you can't access that are like sort of black boxes when it comes to Windows, or encrypted little files that you don't really have a method of editing. But you know, in general, it's kind of true that you know, especially if you're the one making the changes and you're the one breaking it, you kind of know what you've done, so you can kind of undo that process as well. Okay, so we should have the virt-io drivers CD on the computer, which means I'm going to be able to install the guest editions. If you were using some other system where you'd loaded up this VM, you just have to download the guest editions off Red Hat's website. I think there's like a GitHub page, so I think you basically would just type, I'll try and go to it. In fact, I don't even know if I have a network at this stage. Let's have a look in Device Manager. If I don't have a network card working, I'll have to install the drivers and then show you where you'd get them. But basically, you just download them off the internet. They're pretty... oh, yeah. Okay, so I don't have any Ethernet at the moment. So what I'll do is I'll install the drivers, and then at the end, I'll just show you how I get them. So basically, once you do have the drivers, one way or another, on the virtual machine, you need to install all of the relevant guest editions. So the first thing is installing the guest agent. It's fairly important. So I just go in here and install well, it's going to be 64-bit these days for all you guys. So just basically install the guest agent 64-bit, unless you've got like a really old computer. But let's put that on, so that's done, and then you just basically, it's just pretty basic. You just have to install all the relevant ones. So the relevant ones are like going to be like the balloon driver, and so you just go in here, choose like the latest operating system that you intend to put on here. So I know I chose, this is a Windows 10 machine, right? But I'm intending to upgrade it to Windows 11, so just make sure you choose the Windows 11 option. Or Windows 22 is the same thing, I believe. So there might be actually a folder that says Windows 11 specifically. Is there? Oh, there is, yeah. Okay, so you could choose Windows 11, but to be honest, a lot of the drivers are interchangeable, so I wouldn't get too hung up on that. So we want to put that one on. We want to put the network card. So balloon driver is good because it is it helps you with the memory and does a few other little things like reclaim the memory. I'll show you that as well. So let's just put all of the stuff on that we need. No, I did the same thing. I should be picking Windows 11 here, to be honest. So maybe I'll do that from going forward. So let's go back. I'll try to remember to do that. So basically, we want. Don't know what that is. We want this as the graphics driver. We definitely want this one. The graphics driver won't appear under unknown because actually Windows puts on a basic display adapter here. But we do want this one. We don't want this one here. I actually don't know what DOD is, but I always choose this top one. And you can see we actually only have a few options here, but so just choose the latest option, which will be kind of XP, and install that. And if we go here to, what else do I want? Sorry, I got a message. Let me just check what I got. Okay. Okay, so if I go to SCSI and Serial, we probably want those. Okay. Sorry, I'm not a YouTuber, so I get to check my phone if I get a message. I'll just do this for fun. So let's go down to Windows 11 and install that. So I remembered Windows 11 this time, but we're just going to basically install the ones you think you need. If you forget one, all that will happen is you'll be left with some unknown devices, and it should be pretty obvious which ones you need. I just think these are the ones I need, basically, so I'm going with this. Okay, and if I then go to store, I think that's storage containers, so let's go Windows 11, AMD 64. Okay, so I install all of these little drivers here. Someone's just knocking on my door, give me a second. Okay, so I might have to carry this on a little bit later because there's going to be someone cutting some wood just outside my house, actually. So when they start cutting, I might just pause it and we'll come back to this. But basically what I've done is I've just installed all the drivers, basically. So I'm just going to go scan for hardware changes. And then this display adapter, I'm probably going to have to change manually. So update driver or whatever, and then just pick that one, I guess. Hopefully I picked the correct one. No. Does it not like it? It just says it needs to restart. Okay. So basically I've got all the drivers on there now. And that should mean that when I restart, everything is working. So let's do that really quickly. And then I'll show you just how you would download that driver if you haven't done it before. But most of you must have done that. So let's see what happens. It should start to restart pretty quickly. And then the last step is obviously we're going to change it from legacy boot to secure boot so that it's compatible with the more modern operating systems. And I'll show you that as well. Like I'll show you that for now, because obviously the server products haven't reached that point yet where you can't, you can still boot even the latest server operating system, at least today, for Windows in legacy boot mode, but that will, I guess, change in the future, just in the same way that Windows 10 and 11 are a little bit different. But what I'll do is I'll show you that that process or that change, how you do it. So what I want to do is wait for this. Okay, so I'm just waiting for this basically just to start up, and we should have all our drivers working. And I'm just looking outside my window. I think the guy's going to cut some wood soon, so I'm going to actually have to pause this, otherwise we get that the mitre sound of the wood being cut. So if I go here, device manager, hopefully they're all working now. If I did it correctly, maybe if I chose one of the wrong drivers, it'll have an error or something, but let's just see. Actually this one, yeah, I didn't like this one. I don't know, driver, let's go scan, update driver. Maybe it wants the Windows 10 one, so I'll go browse. This one's a little bit different because it's the graphics driver. Maybe it wanted one of these. Don't know. Next. Okay, so maybe it didn't like the one I picked. I can't actually remember which one I picked. This one's slightly different though, so is it happy with that one? No, still doesn't like it. Maybe it does want the other DoD thing. I actually don't know. Browse my computer for drivers. Just keep trying until you find one that works. I'm going to try this one that I told you don't use. There's that sound going. So I'm just going to finish up here once I get this driver working, and then we'll just pause it till they're sort of done cutting. Okay, so actually, yeah, I did want that DoD thing. I actually thought it didn't. I must have misremembered. But either way, you can see it's no big deal. You just basically found a driver that is going to work, and that's up to date. And then once you've done that, obviously now you have the option, which you probably wouldn't have had before, where you can change the screen resolution. So we can just test that's working. So yeah, we can pick a better resolution. I'll just pick this one just to show it's functioning. Okay, so yeah, changing the resolution is no big deal now, and everything is basically installed, including my network adapter. So basically what I want to do, oh, and the other thing I wanted to show you is under here, remember I added that other disk? And I can promise you that this is needed, because look here, this is the SATA disk, right? That I added from the config, and this is the virt-io disk, which is just blank. And obviously beforehand, if I'd gone to disk management, I would only see the one disk because the other one didn't have a driver. And it's this disk here, which is only 1 gig. And I don't even need to initiate it or anything, or any of that kind of stuff. I just need to have this disk here, because basically what I want to do is when you convert the disk to use virt-io, if you don't have the second disk in place, if I was to just go into the config here and just change it, so that if I went here and I just went edit, and I just change this option here, I have to obviously turn the machine off to make any changes. It's grayed out at the moment, but if I just change that from SATA to virt-io and I started up the virtual machine again, it wouldn't boot. And that's because Windows hasn't known to load these drivers with Windows, basically. It doesn't know, oh, I should be loading these drivers when Windows boots up. And so even if you've installed the driver, it doesn't actually bother to load them. So sort of the trick around that is to add another disk that does need the driver, restart at least one time, and then Windows knows, oh, I need to load this driver on boot or it won't see one of the disks. And then you can actually come and change this disk to the virt-io driver, and because it's already loading them on boot, it'll load it for even the boot disk, so you can kind of swap over to virt-io. But we'll do that at the end anyway. So what I'm going to do here, just while I'm in here, is just extend this disk so it uses up all the space. So what I'm wanting for Windows to actually do, and I'm hoping it's going to do this, is that when I convert this to a secure boot installation, it's going to create an EFI partition, and normally what it does is, if there was no unallocated space here, is it will shrink the C drive and add another 100 meg partition at the end. Now, I've never actually tested this, and so this might not work, but what I'm hoping is, because I've left some free space here, when it converts this and it needs an EFI partition, instead of shrinking the C drive, it'll just go, oh, there's some space here, I'll just add it in here. I don't know if it's going to do that. We're going to find out. Because I kind of want to avoid the situation where it adds a partition at the end. I want the C drive to be at the end so I can easily extend the disk. And the last thing, just before I pause for a little while so that you don't keep getting that really irritating sound, is just to show you how you would download the virt-io drivers if you hadn't already added them to the system via the method I did, which was just attaching the ISO. And that's if you just go virt-io drivers GitHub. I'm almost certain. There we go. Is this it? The second one here. No, maybe it was the first link. I'm just going to check. It's one of these ones where you can just click. No, is it Windows? I'm not seeing the drivers, so they're somewhere here. Maybe it's binaries. Sometimes these things are a little difficult to find. Did I go here already? I'll find them for you, but releases. Here we go, releases. And then it says there's none. Let me just go to the Fedora virt-resize documentation. And then it says, it says package scripts, blob master. So if I go back here, it was one of those links, package scripts, in my Google results. Package scripts, yeah, okay. So let me go here. And then it said master. So download here, yeah, you see. Okay, so it's this link here. It says you have to search for virt-io win-pkg scripts, and then you can choose stable for ISO, or if you didn't want, you can choose latest if you didn't want stable. Obviously, I would choose probably stable for the ISO, and I'm pretty sure it'll download, yeah, 0.1.217. That was the same ISO that I had actually added to myself. So basically, yeah, you just download this ISO off the website, and then you get an ISO file, which you can then attach exactly the same over here, basically, and that's the same version, right, what you just seen there. And go in here and install the drivers that way. So that's how you get that ISO. So let me pause for a little bit before we carry on, because the last step is converting this machine from legacy boot to secure boot, and I just want to show you those steps as well, just so that you can see you can bring sort of an old machine that was on old hardware. You can virtualize it and then sort of bring it right up to date so that you can now upgrade it to the latest OS. And it would obviously be a lot easier than trying to upgrade a physical computer, because it's virtualized, so you can take snapshots before your upgrade, and if anything goes wrong, roll back a snapshot and all of that kind of good stuff. And it kind of makes ease of administration a lot easier and safer. And all of the same time, it's going to reduce the amount of downtime you have in service delivery, right? So you can have the physical server still running and doing whatever it did, and then when you're ready to convert over to this virtual environment that you've built and converted to, you can do that, and you can even have upgraded it so that it's like right up to date and pretty much back in compliance. So for example, if it was on an unsupported operating system that's no longer getting updates or something, you could have done all of these risky maneuvers in a virtualized environment and not impacted your service delivery at all. Sort of very useful kind of thing to be able to do in an enterprise environment, right? So let's just log in. I'm going to pause here. I'll leave it disconnected and come back in a short while. Okay, so I think there's like a pause in the cutting of the wood thing going on out there. So what I'm going to do is just carry on here. So what did we achieve? I think I'll turn the machine back on. Yes, running at the moment, so let me just get back there. So let's just go here. So basically, the machine is now ready to be converted to secure boot. One thing I wanted to show you is this machine is obviously still not compatible, say, for the latest operating system like Windows 11. And I think it's also, yeah, this is very default, it's not even activated. But if I go to Windows Update, I think it should tell me here, yeah, it doesn't meet the requirements. So let's do the health check, because we'll see what the requirements are and what we're trying to resolve, basically. So open health check. How do I do that? This is not a useful page. Wasn't there like a tool that you download? Actually, I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to give up on Microsoft's tool here. I thought that they would help you find a tool or something. But I think there's an upgrade assistant. Yeah, update assistant. That's what I want. So I'm not sure why that wouldn't be where they'd take you to when you sort of are requesting help through their update solution. But this would be where I would expect to sort of be taken if I was kind of a user and wanting to know if my machine was going to upgrade. So let's take a look here and see what it says. Probably going to tell me to download something else if my memory serves me correctly. And it's probably the health check tool, which I couldn't find on the page they did take me to be honest, that I'm going to have to download. So let's see what it says. Use PC health check app. So this should have been where it took me to begin with. But basically you want to get this app, download the app. There you go. So this is more logical. And we're going to run this app, and it will basically tell you if I think I've only run this once before, but I think it just tells you what you have to do basically to make it secure or make it compatible. So let's do that. Let's just close this. So we want this PC health check thing, and what's it going to do? It's going to tell me check now. Yeah, okay, so basically it's telling me that the reason I can't upgrade to Windows 11 is, as we knew, it must support secure boot. This is the part of it that's quite complicated, and the other part is just adding a TPM chip, which you can just add when you create the VM. That part is fairly simple. Okay, so how to resolve the first part? Okay, so let me just go back to my notes here. If I just minimize that, just want to get back to my notes over here. The other thing I wanted to do was, just before I forget, is also just re-enable that recovery partition. So I'm going to do that really quickly as well. Let me do that really quickly first. So first I'm going to just re-enable the recovery partition. This is pretty basic to do, because if you go look in disk management and open up File Explorer, you'll be able to do this. So basically we're going to cancel that. We should see our disks, and we see that we've got our C drive here, but we've also got this D drive. It's actually already given it a letter. This is actually the recovery partition, this 512, this larger one, basically, from earlier. We can check that, because if we actually go to if it didn't have a letter, just assign it one temporarily. But if we go to the D drive, we should see that there are actually files here. They're just hidden. We're just going to turn on the hidden files. And we should see there's a recovery folder, basically. And the recovery folder is always set up kind of identically. Yeah, there you go. So there's a recovery folder. So basically what we want to do is, while it's got a drive letter, and we'll remove the drive letter at the end, we're going to fix up this disk. And the way to do that is open up command prompt in elevated mode, so run as administrator. And there's just really a command you're going to run. So we're basically going to go bcdedit to show you that there's no recovery partition in here currently. It should say recovery something or other. There'll be like another line. And then if you go reagentc info, it'll say it's not working or something. It says disabled, right? Okay, so it's disabled, and it knows that it's disabled. So we need to fix it, and it really is just a command you can just copy and paste. Reagentc, and then we're going to go, I've just got it written down here, so I'm just copying it. Setreimage /path, and then obviously the path was the path I just showed you. It was on the D drive in my case, but obviously if you assigned it a different letter, it would be a different letter here. And then recovery. That was the folder that we saw, and underneath that folder there's always this WindowsRE folder, and then we just go target C : /Windows and hit enter. And if I type the command without any spelling errors, it should work like that. There's no errors, and it says it's successful. And then I think we need to type reagentc /enable, I believe. Okay, and then if we go info, which was the first one, it should say that there you go, it's got a whole lot of information about it, and it's found it. And if we go bcdedit, it should basically have added there you go, recovery sequence and recovery enabled, yes, it's basically added an entry. And what that will let me do is boot into recovery mode if I need to. I think you press like F8 or something. So what I'm going to do is just remove the drive letter from here. And recovery mode should now work. I can actually just test that. I'll do it really quickly. Why not? Since we're all here, we'll just test that it's working, rather than just assuming it's working. But if I hit reset and then go F8, I believe I should get into recovery. If it's not F8, I apologize. I might have to do it some other way. Come on, F8. I don't think that's working. Okay, so that didn't work. I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to do. There's some combination of key sequence you're supposed to press in order to get in there. It's the same as booting off the Windows CD. I'll try to do it from, I think there also is a way to do it from the control panel. If the recovery thing doesn't ever work, you just put in the Windows CD and boot off that, and then go the same way as I did before. It's like this recovery mode is like the built-in version, like if you don't have the CD handy. So let me just check if I'm supposed to do this a different way. I honestly don't remember the key sequence. I never go into this really. And the reason I never go into this, I normally have a Windows CD with me, which I normally use. I think I find it a little bit easier and more reliable. But let me go to settings. It'll be in settings, won't it? And search for recovery. I think there's a recovery option. I did think it was F8 that you pressed, but I could obviously be incorrect on that. It's been a little while since I remember that. Okay, yeah, and here's the advanced startup, basically. So we're going to go restart now into advanced startup. I've obviously forgotten the key sequence that you press. Or either that or I didn't press it at the correct time or something. But basically, the recovery partition should work at this point. We should be able to restart into it, and then you get kind of, there you go, all of the similar kind of options that you're used to if you boot off the CD, right? So you could click troubleshoot, I guess. Advanced options. Okay, yeah, so these are all similar things that we saw before. I'm just going to basically just exit out of this recovery partition and just continue to Windows 10, just so that I'm not fiddling around. I verified that it works, basically, is all I actually wanted to do. Exactly how to get into it or whatever is actually unimportant in the grand scheme of things, especially if you use the CD anyway to do this sort of stuff, which I probably recommend anyway, because if there was some sort of compromise or issue on the actual computer that you were trying to repair, I'm not really 100% sure, but it's possible that compromise or issue could be pulled over into the recovery image as well. So it may not even be something that you'd want to use all that often. So I'm not sure what the best practice is on that. I haven't read up a lot about it, but in my logic, using sort of a CD that you know is good, and using that to do sort of repairs makes more sense in just how I understand things. But happy to be corrected on that if someone knows better than I do. If I go back in here, I just want to check everything's working. So, okay, so at this point we want to convert over to secure boot. So how do we do that? So you would boot up off a Windows 10 CD, or actually, maybe I'll make use of the recovery partition this time around to do it. But basically, so let's do that. It'll be fun. Maybe I found a use for recovery. Let's go back and restart into recovery, because what we have to do is we have to convert the disk from MBR to GPT, because if you don't do that, it doesn't support EFI, right? So if we look at the disk currently and we look at the volume, it basically tells you it's a basic disk and it's MBR. Okay, so that's not good. So if I go to my notes on EFI, there we go. Just going to look at my notes. Okay, there's a tool that you run. Okay, MBR to GPT. Excuse me. And you want to run this tool outside of Windows. You can actually override it, I think, and run it while Windows is running. I don't think that it's safe to do so. And so you basically want to restart into the recovery partition, or same thing, just boot off the Windows CD and you want to get the command prompt without Windows being loaded, basically. So let's get to that stage, and we're going to choose command prompt over here, and we're going to do some work in the command prompt. Okay, so it's just booting up, I guess, in the special command prompt mode. And this is just avoiding Windows being sort of loaded up, where we're sort of manipulating the disk. It could corrupt Windows if we did this while we were in Windows. So we're definitely not going to do that. And it should be pretty basic. It's just basically running one command. I'm just looking at the instructions here. Yeah. Okay. It does look like it's just one pretty much basic command. And then what we'll find is once we've run this command, the computer doesn't boot again. Okay, so, and then we'll have to make some change in order for it to boot, basically. Oh, okay. Okay, so we get logged in. So I think if you use the Windows CD, I haven't seen that before, you have to log in with your password, but I guess that's because we're logging in from the recovery image. And it's this command here, mbr2gpt, and you type validate first, just to check you don't get any errors. If you do get any errors, you're going to want to Google that obviously first and make sure that you correct them before attempting to do conversion. In my case, I don't get any errors because it's a pretty basic setup. And then we just type convert, I think it is. Yeah, convert. And it converts the disk, it creates the EFI partition now. And then what we'll find is the computer no longer is able to start up. So let's wait for it to complete. It shouldn't take long. It should be a fairly quick change. So let's see. Okay, installing the new. And it says failed to update reagent. Okay, and then it says, okay, so it actually said there was something wrong with the recovery environment. It failed to update something, trees disable and then re-enable the recovery environment again. So maybe I have to actually do that. I'm not too sure. But let's exit and turn off the computer, or, okay, it just turned off. So let's just restart it. VMs. So this should now no longer boot. So if I go to here, let's have a look. Okay, so yeah, it looks like it's not booting. So let me just move this over so you can see. So this is what I'm seeing here. It's just basically saying, can it boot? And the answer is no, it can't boot. So it's basically screwed. So we have to make a change now to the actual virtual machine in order for this to boot. So what is the change that we have to make? We need to force this off, and then we need to actually delete it and re-add this whole thing all over again, but with the correct BIOS method now, because we want to basically enable secure boot. So we're going to remove VM. Obviously not remove VM and disks, that would be bad. We're just going to remove just the VM while preserving the disks, and we're going to add a new one again. And so all my disks will still be preserved because I didn't opt to delete them. They're still here. This is a connection to my Unraid server. And again, I just want to stress this doesn't really matter if you're using Unraid or Proxmox, whatever. I use this just at my home because Unraid is easy. But you know, once you have a virtual disk image, the sort of steps will be kind of similar that we're going over. Just there may be some slight differences, but you're basically just doing the same kind of thing, right? It's all KVM underneath. So let's assign our RAM that we want. And this is where we're changing the machine type. So we're basically changing it to Q35 now. And we're making sure that it's OVMF. This is basically enabling secure boot, this BIOS. And you'll notice that I'm choosing the one with TPM because remember one of the things the health check actually came up with. It kind of said it doesn't have a trusted platform module. And so this is the second part of the incompatibility that we're trying to resolve here. Then if we go down, I don't need this anymore because I've already loaded the drivers. So I don't need any OS and I don't need any drivers. But I do need to obviously reattach the disk from before. Excuse me, so let's just do that. And it was here, and I'm going to put on the test disk here. And I'm going to just leave it. I'll boot eventually this into virt.io right at the end when I've fixed everything. And just put this in. Oh, and I need to attach my other disk, don't I? So I will eventually get back to attaching that disk. So let's have a look. Domains. Okay, and that was this one. Okay, and it detects it's virt.io. Okay, and it can only be 8 for some reason. So we're going to put the same nice little network card back on. We're going to uncheck this, and we're going to click create. It should create. Okay, and it does. Okay, so now the machine, I'm going to try to be quick. So let me just get that up and ready, because it'll go very quickly. So I want to try and show you as much as possible. So I'm going to hit start, open up VM1, bring that over. Okay, here we go. So this is what you see. There you go. So the new BIOS is loading, and it's in secure boot mode. And this should now allow Windows to boot. You can see actually we've already got the little spinny logo. So I'm thinking it's going to work, basically. We will find out now. And we'll find out where it created the EFI partition. I'm actually really unsure at this stage where Windows has opted to create it. Because I'm hoping it didn't shrink Windows down and then add it at the end. That would be a problem that I was trying to avoid. I'm hoping it used the unallocated space and just put the EFI partition there. And that, again, is just because of ease of administration. If I ever need to extend the disk, I want the C drive at the end in order to be able to do that, right? Just put in my temporary password here and see what it does. Okay, so let's find out what it's done. So we're back in Windows, and we definitely have secure boot now. So if I go to Device Manager, we should see a TPM module as well. So this is going to be interesting. So we'll also open up Disk Management while we're waiting. Let's see what it does. So first of all, Device Manager. Oh no, I think this is not right. Okay, interesting. Okay, so it converted this initial partition that I had. It actually changed it to the EFI. So actually, so as you can see, I wasn't 100% sure what would happen. So I had left some space here. It actually went and just changed this first partition into the EFI partition, and then left the recovery partition. And then so it didn't ever use any of this space. So I've kind of wasted a little bit of space here. It's not actually an issue, and I wouldn't worry too much about it, because that's a very nominal amount of space to have lost. You could try and move this partition over, I guess, if you wanted, with gparted and clean it up a little bit more. Personally, I wouldn't even bother, because you may ever, at some point in the future, come into a situation where you want to increase the size of these partitions. And if you were in that situation, having some unallocated space available to do that is very useful. I think that this started out as a 50 megabyte partition, and I think that's too small for an EFI partition by default in Windows. I think the minimum is 100. So I think where I've seen it shrink this C drive before and then added on the end is where this hasn't been resized larger. And then it didn't know what to do, so it just made a new one. And then it gives you all sorts of trouble. So you do definitely, from time to time, want the ability to increase the size of these due to changes as the operating systems become more modern and they add more stuff into these sort of areas, because they're quite small as it is. So just bear that in mind. It's always nice to have a little bit of space available to play with, and then especially if it's not doing any harm, right? There's no harm from leaving some unallocated space here available if we need it. There's no harm in adding more disk space so that we can extend the C drive easily to the right. I'll show you that now as well. But basically everything should actually be in place now. The only thing is I haven't changed the hard disk over to be virt.io. So I'm going to do that now, just to show you that. So let's close that down and show you that. So this is the last sort of part that you have to do once it turns off. Okay, let's turn off VM. come on. Okay, so eventually it turns off, so let's go edit here. So this would be the last sort of step. I do this right at the end just because when you sort of make hardware changes, it can sort of disrupt this process. So I'm just going to change this to virt-io and remove the other disk now because it knows, it's had a whole lot of reboots, it knows for sure it needs to load that virt-io driver. So I'm pretty sure it will load it when I, even after removing that disk. If it ever doesn't boot, you can always add a blank disk back and then change this temporarily to SATA, and then sort of once it's restarted, change it back to virt-io. It's kind of a little bit of a process, but you can do that. Here we're all good. I think the rest of this is all pretty good actually. So we're going to hit apply, and we should now have a completely up-to-date Windows 10 machine that is ready to be upgraded. I'm almost 100% certain, and everything is compliant exactly how Microsoft expects it. Oopsie, I did not mean to do that. Sorry, I misclicked there. Now I've gone and done something funny. Oh, okay, hold on, let me just quit this. Actually, sorry, Genome is freaked out a bit here, so let me just get back in here. Okay, I kind of broke things a little bit there by misclicking. Let's just check. Okay, that didn't start, so I kind of did something wrong there. Let me just get my... Okay, let me just get this over now and see what it's doing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I don't know what I did there. I kind of clicked something wrong and the computer freaked out a little bit. But basically we should be good here now. Windows is starting up, right? Yes, it is. So we should be 100% at this point. Okay, my bad. I don't know what I clicked there. Okay, so we're all good. We're back on track here. Okay, so let's log in again. And we should see now we've got the driver loaded nicely. So my main thing about this whole process is, like, you never panic if things go wrong and things don't boot. There's always a solution. Just think carefully and take your time. You'll be good. So we're going to look at disk management and device manager, won't we? Just to make sure everything is in place. And then we'll run that PC health thing again, and it'll probably say device is super compliant, and we're all good. So here's that TPM chip. We've got that now, so we know that's compliant. Our disk drive is basically the virt-io, so we know we got the fastest driver there. And our disk is all perfect, and if we go here, it'll say GPT for sure under volumes. Yeah, it does. So there we go, guys. We basically have perfectly brought this machine into compliance and ready to upgrade to the next OS. So if I go to, what was that thing called? PC Health or something? PC Health Tech, yeah. Let's just run this again. I bet it's going to say we're all good now. So let's check it out. Got some sort of security warning here. So let's see, account protection. No, I don't want to do that. And app, and I guess we can turn that on. Okay, so something about not having a Microsoft account. Yeah, like I don't need that. So that's the only thing that it was complaining about. But let's have a look here. If we go check now, does my PC meet the minimum requirements? And it does. Look at this, great news. Okay, awesome. So we've basically virtualized this whole old computer. And I just want to stress this, I chose just an easy Windows 10 sort of thing, but it could definitely be a server product. The steps are going to be the same. And we've managed to virtualize it and bring it all the way up to compliance, do a whole lot of work on it, get it up and running, and even get it to the point where we can now take a snapshot at this point, do a whole OS upgrade, so that it's no longer in an out-of-date operating system. So if I go check for updates, I'm assuming this says I should be able to upgrade to Windows 11. I'm not 100% sure how you get this to upgrade through Windows Update. Is there some method you have to do? But whatever. This thing is basically saying that I'm compliant. So if I click here, check all requirements, what does that do? Okay, that just opens up a Windows browser. Okay, we don't need to do that. I'm thinking it will just finish and, oh, there we go. Windows 11 is ready and it's free. Download and install. Yeah. So it's basically at this point, it's just a normal computer or a normal VM, and you can just basically hit download and install, and it will just do an update. Yeah, the update's called literally Windows 11, and I guess it would just this would probably take like an age to complete, but the whole computer is compliant. It'll sort itself out. It'll I have no reason to assume this won't work. I guess what I could do, I could pause the video here and just boot when it's in Windows 11, just to prove that to you. Maybe I'll do that, and then the video will be kind of at an end. But there's really not much else to tell you. We've gone through all the different little steps, from dumping the image to converting the file to be a qcow2 disk, to manipulating the partitions with gparted, moving them around how we want them, then fixing the Windows installation after copying up so that it boots, because obviously it didn't boot when we had manipulated the partitions, and we did that with booting off a Windows 10 CD and running that what was it called again, that command? I've forgotten. It was, let me just look it up, I'll tell you. We ran that, bootrec/rebuildbcd to fix the boot app. And we've basically done everything. Oh, it did actually complain something about the recovery partition, didn't it? But anyway, then we enabled that recovery partition, sorted all that out, converted it to secure boot. Once that was completely done, it was compliant, and it can even update Windows now. Let me just check if I can do the... I can't remember if it did say something when I did that GPT conversion tool, something about the Windows recovery environment. I don't know if there's a... Let me just go. I don't know if there's even a problem, if that's just a warning message or... did I not do that? Okay, CMD. So let me just check if the recovery is still working. I know it did throw an error, and it did say something about disabling and re-enabling it or something. So I'll just double check and verify. I'm not 100% sure. So it says enabled, and it says it's got a recovery location. So I don't know. It said when I ran that tool that I needed to disable and re-enable it, but it might have just been lying, to be honest. That sounds about right. So let's just see if the recovery option is still available. Recovery option. Can you start up from the recovery thing? I'm just going to hit restart. We'll find out if it's working. If it's not working, I'll do the thing that it told me, which was run that command, disable, and then re-enable. But I actually don't believe that that's necessary after converting the disk to GPT. And there you go. It's not necessary. It booted perfectly into the recovery mode. So I don't know what that error was about. I'm just going to ignore it, and if the recovery partition ever does not work, use the Windows 10 CD, or in fact, I would recommend using that anyway. So, I don't actually even think the recovery partition is even all that critical, thinking about how it works and how safe it might even be. Because obviously if the computer has some sort of infection or some malicious actor gets onto it, he has the ability to start modifying files in that recovery partition, potentially. And so I would be personally a little bit worried, or a little bit, more hesitant to make use of that recovery partition all that often, unless it was like something like what I did here, where I knew the machine was totally clean and it didn't matter. So is this just going to carry on upgrading? What I'll do is I'm going to stop the video here, and then yeah, this is just carrying on downloading. Great. So I'll stop it here, and then we'll just see. I'll probably leave it a couple of hours and see if Windows 11 updates fine. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, I have a full expectation this will all work, as I'm sure you do. So I'll pause and come back, and then that'll just be the end of the video. Thank you. Okay, so I left this thing for quite a while, and then sort of came back, and it seems to have installed Windows 11. So I guess that's kind of the end of that. Yeah, and there's not really much else to say, but other than the fact that it kind of worked out, which is what we were hoping for. So yeah, I'll leave it there, and if you have any questions, just let me know. But I think we're pretty good here. So thanks for watching.